Hey everybody, this is Pip from Pip's Path to Property, and we get tons of questions from students, whether they're brand new to the world of investing or they've been doing it for a while, what is your credit score? How does your credit score work? How do you fix your credit? What you should be looking for on your credit? What's a good thing for your credit? What's a bad thing for your credit? And you as a person, you don't even have to be an investor in property. You need to know what your credit score is. You need to understand that this is a very important part of everything that we're doing in life, not just in business, but in your life. And you're going to be measured by your credit score. So what I'd like to do is take some time on this video. And it's going to be very basic for some people because you already know some of it. But if you do watch it till the end, I think what you'll find is there are definitely some nuggets that you can pick up as you watch this video so that it will help you manage your credit, improve your credit, more importantly, how to use your credit. And I think the biggest benefit that we have, now, some of you guys that are watching this are kids yourself. You might be a teenager, you may be in your early 20s, you may just be starting your professional life. But some of you might be closer to my age, and you may have kids that are teenagers, or kids that are even in their early 20s, or kids that are small. One of the most important things we can do as parents, I'm a big fan of paying it forward. One of the most important things we can do as parents is to teach our kids. And the one thing that we can learn to teach our kids is how to manage their credit, how it works, and why is it so important for them. I think one of the biggest burdens we have in society today is student loan debt. And I get it. I understand that going to college, going to university is an important thing. And statistically, over time, you will probably earn more money than somebody who hasn't gone to school and got that degree. But a lot of times what we do, whether somebody's gone to college or not, by the time they're late teens, early 20s, they've already got a low credit score because they didn't even know it was something they should be paying attention to. So I'd like to, at the end of this, talk a little bit about what you can do to help your kids. And every one of your kids should be watching this at some appropriate point. I think by the time they're 13, 14, 15, they should be watching a video like this. I think as a parent, you should be getting your kids a credit card by the time they're 16. I know some of you guys all just freaked out when I said that. I'm sure my Dave Ramsey fans are going, what? No, we need to learn how to manage credit. We need to learn how to utilize it. And what we can do as parents is we can help our kids by the time they get out of from underneath our house or our roof or whatever you want to call it, they're able to have a good credit score or a very good or maybe even an excellent credit score, rather than straddling them with a really low credit score the minute they leave us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen here. And what I want to do is make sure as we go through this, you guys understand, I'm going to say this first and foremost, I am not a credit expert whatsoever. I do have some knowledge of it. I'd like to share what I know about it. Some of you guys may know a lot more about it, and I'm going to give you some of my opinions on this video as well. So this video will take a little time as we go through it, because I'm going to go back to some of the very basics. And first of all, what I want to talk about is, what is your credit score? What is it made up of? Well, so what is a credit score? Now, the one thing I can tell every one of you guys is you can go online and there is a ton of information regarding credit scores. However, I do want to warn you as well. A lot of times those people that are on those sites, they are a company that are selling their services. And one of the things you're going to hear a lot, especially if you've got bad credit and you want to learn how to repair it, is that they're going to want to try to sell you those services. There's nothing wrong with that, but what I know about credit scores, and even some of the companies will tell you this, you can do it all yourself. You can challenge your credit score. You can challenge that are things that are wrong on your credit score. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But the point is, with a little common sense and more importantly, some knowledge that we're going to share with you right now, you can improve your own credit score. You don't have to pay a service to do that. Will it help your credit score to pay that service? Actually, there is some information out there that may say that if you do certain things with certain credit repair companies, that it could lower your score. The one thing I can share with you about credit scores, it's a constantly moving target. If you think your credit score is going to be a certain number and it's going to stay that way forever, you are completely fooling yourself. It's a living, breathing organism. You need to understand that it's going to go up, it's going to go down, it may stay flat for a while. The point is, you need to be keeping score. So let's talk first of all about what a credit score is and how do they even come up with it? There are really 3 companies that are out there in the US that do this. If you're watching this from one of my Canadian students, you only have 2 of the bureaus, not the 3rd one. And so we have Experian, we have TransUnion, and we have Equifax. All 3 of these bureaus are checking your credit on a regular basis. And the interesting thing about it, if I am a lender to you, or a bank loans you money, or you get a car loan from a finance company, they may be only reporting this to 1 or 2 of these bureaus and not all 3. That's why you're going to see some variations in your credit scores. Now, when we start to look at credit scores, what we want to talk about is what's a good score, what's a bad score. And so the range of credit scores generally goes somewhere between about 300 and 850. Now, you will see that there are certain situations where you could see as low as 250 all the way up to 900. Those are industry specific. I would say a large percentage, probably 90+% of what you need to worry about, maybe even 95, 99%, is this range right here. And so as we look at this and we start to see what's going on with our credit score, what we need to understand is, what does that mean? So anything that is 800 or above is what they consider excellent credit. Excellent credit is what they consider that. So if you are 740 to 799, they are going to consider that very good. That's very good credit. 670 to 739 is considered good credit. 580 to 669 is considered average or fair, is what they say a lot of times. And then from 300 up to 579 is considered poor credit. Now, I know some of you guys, when I wrote those numbers down, you're already trying to figure out where you're at, and you may be in one of these lower areas and you think that's just the worst thing in the world. Is it the worst thing in the world? No, because what you can do is you can fix it. You can repair it. And that's really what I want this video to be about, is how do we repair our credit? What should we be doing? No matter where we're at on this chart, what should we be doing on a daily basis to continue to make our score higher? Why do we want a higher score? Higher score equals lower interest rates. So if you are borrowing money, whether it's for a car, whether it is for a house, whatever it may be for, a credit card, we'll talk about credit cards in this video as well. No matter what you're borrowing, the higher your score is equals a lower interest rate. So does that mean you can't get credit if you have a lower score? Not at all. What it just means that you're going to pay higher interest. So having a higher credit score is going to give you, what it's going to give you is the best rates, and it's going to cost you less money to borrow money and to do a lot of everyday things. Now, what does this mean, and what are the credit bureaus really looking at? What they're really looking at is what we call a FICO score. FICO score is generally, I can't even spell anymore. A FICO score is going to be made up of 2 or 3 of your credit bureau scores. So you may be at 640 on Experian, you may be at 690 on TransUnion, and maybe 640 or 630 on Equifax. And FICO is kind of an average of those scores is what they're doing. And where does FICO come from? Where it comes from and why it's so important is it's basically the Fair Isaacs, and I'm probably going to spell something wrong here. And you can go online and find this out, Fair Isaac Corporation. And what happened was this started in 1989. Fair Isaac started in 1989, and the world of money started to change. The world of debt and credit started to change then, because what they did is they now had a general way to report credit, how to measure credit, and it was kind of more of a uniform way. Now, the one thing I'm going to say is, even though I said the word uniform, credit scores don't ever seem to be that way. It seems to be there's a lot of gray area there. And so one of the things that Fair Isaacs did, it really basically started to put a playing field out there so that we could keep some scores to try to make some sense of this. And so when we look at this, what are these credit scores really doing for you? And how does it help you, and why do we need them? So this is a kind of a background of your credit score. And now, so as we get to dig a little bit deeper into this, what you're going to see with credit scores, and it's very important here, I'll just put that off to the side. What you're going to see with credit scores is the lower your score, basically what the credit bureaus do is they model this. And what they model is they say, based on your credit score, how likely are you to have a 90-day late payment? How likely are you to have a 90-day late payment in the next 24 months? So this is what they're looking at. Those scores, we talked about them earlier, anywhere from 300 to 850. What they're looking at is how likely are you to have a 90-day late payment over the next 24 months? That's what they're looking for. Why those statistics? I don't know. That's what Fair Isaac started to put together with the FICO scores, as we're going to be talking about this moving forward. So why do you need a good credit score? I think most people think it's just for interest rates. We talked about those already. So you get lower interest rates with a better score. So why else do we need to worry about this? They can look at your credit score when you're renting, not buying, not borrowing money, renting an apartment or a house. They have all the ability to do that. They can literally, now you have to sign off on it. You guys may have called on one of your credit cards or been on a phone call, and the recording comes up and says, this call may be recorded for customer service and or training purposes. And I agree, those calls are recorded for customer service or training purposes. But we're going to get into what's a hard pull versus a soft pull in just a minute. What I want you guys to understand is, if you want your credit pulled, you have to tell them. It's illegal for them to just willy-nilly pull your credit on what's called a hard pull. So if I was renting an apartment to you right now, I could say to you, before I gave you this apartment, I'm going to check your credit score. So you'd have to sign off that I can check your credit score. That's what it comes down to. So in getting insurance, so getting car insurance, getting health insurance, they can look at your credit score to make sure that you're able to pay. And more importantly, what is your propensity to have a 90-day late payment in the next 24 months? And they have actuaries. And what are actuaries? Actuaries are people that are really smart at math, way smarter than me at math. And what they do is they look at those models and they figure out what's the probability that you may default in the next 24 months. So you might have to have your utilities turned on in your apartment, in your rental property. They can check your credit to do that as well. So this isn't just borrowing money. Interest rates are when you borrow money for a car or maybe a credit card or maybe a house. That's one of the reasons you want a better credit score. But your credit score can affect your ability to rent an apartment, getting insurance, utilities, all kinds of different stuff. And when markets start to get tight and there's very few apartment rentals out there, and so you're in a tight market, guess what? You may be able to make the payment, no problem, but somebody else may have a higher credit score that they're comparing to you, and they may rent out that apartment that you really wanted because their other person's credit score was higher than yours. Think about that for just a second. That's a very important part that we need to understand with our credit score. So repairing your credit, we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. is a very important part of making sure that your livelihood is able to be a much smoother ride. Now, the other thing that can happen, and this is obviously something they have to ask you, but employers can do a background check and check your credit. They can do a background check and check your credit. And so what happens is they may look at your credit score and say, once again, if there are 2 or 3 people competing for a job, that you may not get that job because this other person is more qualified than you. So just to understand, there's many, many different reasons why you need to make sure your credit score is solid. Now, does it have to be 800 plus? Are you going to be, criticized because it's not 800 plus? I don't think that's the point we're trying to make here whatsoever. What we want to do is we want to know how do we repair that score? How does that work? And so the first thing I want to do, and I think this is very important as we go through here, I think one of the first things we want to do is figure out what makes up your credit score. Why does your credit score go up, down, and sideways? So what determines your credit score? What determines your credit score? Most important thing that you can do is pay on time. So pay timely. That makes up 35% of your credit score, paying on time. How much credit you've utilized? How much of your credit have you utilized? So what does that mean? When your credit utilization is higher, that means it's going to have a bigger impact on your credit score in a downward way. So if you have $1,000 that you've borrowed and your credit limits are $2,000, that means 50% of your credit is being utilized. So if you had $1,000 that you borrowed versus a $10,000 credit limit, you've only got 10% of your credit utilized. So that would actually increase your score to have access to more of that credit. So just understand that that can all play into this. Now, another one that we're going to talk about is length of credit. Now, here's the reason it is so important to start this early with your kids, because the longer you have had credit, actually the more it helps your credit score. So somebody who's in their 50s like me, you may have 30 plus years of credit history. Somebody who's watching this that's 19 years old, there's no way on God's green earth that you can have 30 years of credit history, because guess what? You just started doing this. So understand, we need to give our kids, we need to give the next generation a leg up and teach them this kind of stuff, because they're not going to have length of credit until they've been doing it a while. We're going to talk about one trick that you can use to actually become an authorized user on somebody else's credit card that can help you start building your credit up here as well. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Credit mix. You want to have different types of credit out there. That accounts for about 10%. That accounts for about 10% of your credit score. And so this credit mix that we talk about, there's credit cards, obviously, a car loan, an installment loan. There's things out in the world today called peer-to-peer loans, things like that. There's home loans, mortgages, if you will, all kinds of different loans that you can get. And so what the credit bureaus are looking at is, how do we have this? Is everything on credit cards? Or do we have a mix of a home loan, a car loan, a couple of credit cards, maybe some school loans, all those kinds of things? The point is, and it's very important to understand this, is that we need to be learning how to borrow money. And we need to understand that that's part of the world today. I didn't make this rule up. I wasn't born until 67, but in 1971, Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard, and all of our money became fiat currency, which means let it be so, is really what fiat means. And so now that is when credit started to become much more important. And what you're going to find is that wealthy people in the world understand how credit works. What we find a lot of times are the poor and middle class, the ones that get beat up on this because they don't understand it. And they don't know that they can get a better credit score to even pay lower interest rates. So this is why it's so important to learn how credit works, because our currency is no longer backed by gold. And that's been what, 50 years ago now? Is that going to change anytime soon? I highly doubt it, because they let the genie out of the bottle. And what that means is that we need to understand, we need to learn how to use credit. And those of us that use credit the best are going to be able to play the game at the highest level. So credit mix is going to be a big part of this. And the last thing that's probably going to be on there, and this is going to encompass a lot of different things, is recent applications. It's going to be about 10% of your credit score. You may hear, if you look at your credit score and you already know something about it, it may say too many inquiries. That's part of the recent applications. It's a very small percentage of it though. One thing, if I could give you a quick tip or trick, if you're applying for a car loan and you're doing 2 or 3 different services, talk to them about how they report that, because many times, since you're going out to buy a car and you're shopping it around, do the same thing with the mortgage, it may only be counted as one credit pull on you or one ding. And so what you want to do is ask questions. It never hurts. Remember, they have to ask you. You have to give them permission. Why are those phone calls recorded? Because I need to say, yes, I want you to check my credit. And if I challenge it and I didn't ever say that, those companies that are checking my credit could get into trouble if they do it wrong. Nobody wants to do this wrong. We want to make sure we're doing it right. There's 2 different ways they can check your credit. They're called a soft pull or a hard pull. This does not affect your credit. You have to authorize them to do a hard pull. Nobody can do a hard pull on your credit unless you give them permission to. Don't forget that. So what are soft pulls? A soft pull is when you go to any credit reporting service, and there are tons of them out there. I'm not here to recommend services. I'll tell you the one that I use. It's called creditkarma.com. I can check my own credit as many times as I want to, and it's always a soft pull. If I do it myself, it's a soft pull. Can I do it myself through those agencies? Yeah, because you're requesting to check your own credit. When somebody else, like a lender who's going to lend you money for a car, when a credit card company, you're trying to get a credit card, when you tell them, yeah, I want you to check my credit, that's got to be authorized. So this is going to affect your credit score. This does not. Now, the question is, how much does it affect your credit score? About 2 to 10 points is what I've known or what I've heard. Could I be off on that a little bit? Yeah. I'm not saying I'm an expert on this whatsoever. What I'm sharing with you is that you need to get educated on your credit. And there are so many things that we can do. There are so many things that we can do to make sure that we are repairing our credit if we need to. There's things that we can do to make sure that we understand we can check our own credit. So that's what determines your credit score. So make sure that you understand that your credit scores are going to vary. I know for a fact you're different credit bureaus. So if you're getting reported on with 2 or 3 of these different credit bureaus, there can be more than 20-point swings between them. Why is that? Because that is timing. Just because one reports on the 15th of the month, another one may not start pulling information until the 30th of the month. If you've done something in between that time frame, that can affect your score up or down. So don't be concerned if there is some variations between the two, especially 20 points or less. Now, if it gets to be 20 points or more, what we may understand at that point is that one bureau has something negative reporting on your credit score that the other bureau does not. So let's talk about what we can do. What are some solid steps that we can take right now to start fixing our credit? Because that's what it should really be all about, is how can we start to fix our credit? So what happened was, years ago, we had what's called the CROA, Credit Repair Organization Act. The Credit Repair Organization Act, what it allowed us to do, ladies and gentlemen, It allowed us to now dispute any negative stuff. So this started in 1997. And so what happened with this is it allows us to dispute anything on our credit score, any negative information that is on our credit score. That's what it allowed us to do. So it's important we understand that this is what the Credit Repair Organization Act, CROA, allowed us to do. Why would we want to dispute stuff? If you have literally something on there that you disagree with, it could be a late payment, it could be something that's reported on your score that you didn't do, it is worth disputing. And it's a matter of doing it in writing. You have to do it in writing. So you have to send this to your credit or to the people that are saying you have this charge, or you had this late payment, or you did this, or you did that. Now, late payments are going to be the toughest ones to challenge because there's probably a time and date stamp on that, which there will be. But if you have something on your credit score, and things like when you change address, that can get things messed up on your credit score. If you have a common name, if your name is John Smith, there's probably going to be some issues where you may have some challenges. And so there can be a lot of different reasons. If you recently got married and changed your name, that can be an issue for your credit score as well. So not that these are always going to be a problem, but what I want you guys to think about is, what are some things I should be paying attention to? So this is where a lot of these companies come in, and what they do is they tell you they can dispute the credit stuff for you. Can all of those people do that? If you give them permission, they can then dispute credit for you. What they're going to do is they're going to charge you a fee. Generally, what they do is they charge you a monthly fee to be checking your credit to make sure that there's that everything's on there is valid. And if they actually dispute something, they can actually charge you per dispute. My opinion, and this is Pip's opinion, I don't work for any of those credit repair agencies, and they may tell you differently. None of this needs to be paid for to start with, in my opinion. If it's too big of a job for you, then maybe. But at the end of the day, you can dispute anything with any credit bureau, with any credit or creditor that you have. Here's the coolest part about it. The person that you are disputing it with. So let's say that you have, and I don't want to pick on a company, but let's say that you have a dispute with, you bought a car, you bought a Ford. And so you got the Ford, and I'm losing my words here. You got the Ford credit to get you a loan on a car. I've never gotten a loan on a Ford, so I don't even know if they do that, but it's the first thing I thought of. So you bought this car, you got it through their Ford credit bureau, and Ford says, okay, you got a late payment, or Ford says you didn't make a payment, or whatever the situation is, and you disagree with that. You dispute it in writing and say, I disagree. I know I paid this on time. Here's the coolest part about it. Ford would have 30 to 45 days to prove you wrong. Why is that so important? The burden of proof is on the creditor and not on you. That is huge. You don't have to go back and look at all your details and say, I know I did this right. They have to show where they never received any payment and that payment never happened, or whatever you're disputing. So their burden of proof, the burden of proof is on them, which makes it a lot higher bar for them to overcome. The point is, it doesn't cost you any money to dispute that stuff. And it's already on your credit score. So it's not like it's going to, if they don't take it off there, that it's going to change your credit score again. It's already negatively impacted your credit score. If it is truly something that you did or did not do, should I say, then it's going to stay on there. Now, in most instances, time is your best friend when it comes to credit. Time is your best friend when it comes to credit. When you have a late payment, when you have a missed payment on a mortgage, when you have those things, they're generally going to stay on your credit report for 7 years or more. They're going to stay on your credit report for 7 years or more. Your inquiries, so when it says too many inquiries, That kind of stuff is probably 2 years or less. You can verify all this stuff. There is a huge mountain of information online. I know sometimes when you go online, it's not organized. Who do you believe? Understand, I have nothing to do with your credit score. I don't have anything to do with any credit reporting service. I don't have anything to do with any credit repair service. I'm sharing the information that I've learned over the years, and I want you guys to be aware of that as we're going through here. So I like to call this WIN. What does WIN stand for? WIN stands for something very important. What's important now? The WIN process. So what's important now? So if you want to repair your credit, some of this is going to sound very common sense. Understand that if you think it sounds, oh, I should already know that, that's okay. If you didn't know it, great. If you did know it and you're not doing it, then you need to go back and do it. That's very important. So what's important now? You need to pay your bills on time. It makes up 35% of your score, is paying those bills on time. If you can't pay them on time, meaning you get paid the 15th and the 30th of the month, or you get paid every other week, you can actually change payment dates. Maybe your cash flow, the incoming versus your outgoing doesn't make sense, and you can't afford to make all these payments on the 15th when you don't get paid until the 30th. So change the payment date so that it makes sense for you to be able to pay on time. Very important that you're paying on time. And if it isn't, you're unable to do it with the current payment schedule, change those payment schedules. Now, one of the things that is such a misconception when it comes to credit cards is, I understand you want to pay those puppies off, and I don't blame you. Generally, they're high interest. However, you can negotiate interest rates with credit cards, and in some instances, get it down to 0%. The point I want to make about credit cards, though, let's say that you have 3 credit cards and you're paying off your credit cards. The best thing that you can do is take whatever line of credit is the highest interest rate. This can come into budgeting as well as credit repair. But so let's say you have 3 credit cards. One's at 19%, one's at 14%, one's at 9%. Which credit card should you pay off first? The one at 19%, because that's the highest cost of the capital. So what I want to make sure you understand, though, is let's say you get the 19% Chase Visa paid off. Do not close it down. Keep your credit lines open. I'm not saying go out and open 30 more credit cards. What I'm saying is if you already have a credit line open, pay it off if you can and keep it open. And here is why. I said this earlier. The second biggest thing on your credit is utilization. So if you have a credit card that has a $5,000 limit and you cancel that card, you've just changed your utilization rate down by $5,000. And so what does that do? That can negatively impact your credit score. So just understand, once you pay it off, keep it open, become disciplined with it. And so if you're not using your credit lines, this can lower your score too. So what we want you to do is use your credit card, pay it off. You be paying on your mortgage, be paying on your home loan. It doesn't hurt to have those credit lines out there. In fact, if you're paying on them regularly, then what's going to happen is that's going to show the credit bureaus that you are a good manager of debt. Now, this is something that I learned a long time ago, and I want you to make sure you understand it because there's a cost to do what I'm going to share with you next. A lot of times people are concerned because they don't like where their credit score is. Maybe their credit score is at 350 or is at 400 or is at 450, and they want to increase that credit score. I completely understand if that's something you want to do. So if you're sitting here in one of these areas, I don't think it would make much difference up here, but if you're in one of these 3 areas and you want to see a quick bump in your credit score, when I say quick, probably going to take 6 months. But what I'm going to do is give you a quick tip. If you want to see your credit score jump, Go out, put some money on a credit card, $2,000, $1,000, whatever it is, and pay the minimum monthly payment for 6 months instead of paying it off immediately. Why did I say there was a cost? Because you're going to be paying interest. But the point is that interest is what you're paying to get your credit score to jump up. Why is it going to do that? Because TransUnion, Equifax, Experian, they want to see that you can manage debt over time, not that you can defer payments for 30 days. And when you put something on a credit card and pay it all off at the end of 30 days, you're not managing debt, you're deferring a payment for 30 days, which is fine if that's what you want to do. If you want to see your credit score jump, and I'm going to say this again, it's for these people that are in these groups or lower, not these upper two groups. If you want to see your credit score jump, put it $500, $1,000, $2,000 on a credit card, make the minimum monthly payment for 6 months, and then pay it off. So what's the discipline you have to have? If you got a $2,000 limit on that card, make sure at the end of 6 months, or $2,000 charged on that card, make sure at the end of the 6 months, you've kept the money that you needed to pay off that $2,000. Don't go spend it somewhere else. If that means putting it in a different account, for some of you, it may be hiding it under your mattress. I don't know what you do with your money. The point is, pay it off at the end of 6 months, and you will probably see your credit score jump. Now, somebody's going to watch this video and try it, and it's not going to help. Well, I can't help it if you got 2 or 3 or 4 other things that might be negatively impacting your credit score. If you're paying attention to it, what you're going to find is that you're going to see that credit score jump if that's the only thing you're working on, as far as you don't have any other negative stuff on your credit score. So the other thing I want you to think about, and this is probably the easiest way to help your kids, is now your kids are going to have to be 18 before they can do this. I would encourage you to have your kids have a credit card even earlier than that. Multiple reasons, emergencies if nothing else. But secondly, by the time they start driving, in my opinion, they should have a credit card. And they should start to learn, and we're going to talk more in other videos about budgeting and things like that. You need to start teaching your kids this stuff immediately, because they don't teach this in school. They're not going to learn it online unless they're looking for it. And more importantly, they're not learning it from from TV or from movies or anything like that. They're not learning it from reality shows. They're not learning it on Snapchat or TikTok. What you need to learn and understand is that one of the best ways to help you build somebody else's credit, or they may be building their credit with your help. This could be a brother, a sister, somebody like that. What you want to do is you basically want to become an authorized user on another person's account. Become an authorized user. So your social security number is going on to somebody else's credit card. So let's say that you've remarried and you now have a new spouse, and that spouse has some really bad credit because of whatever they went through with their divorce. And so you put your new spouse's social security as an authorized borrower on your credit card. Now you can, if you want to, and this would be probably more for a kid than a spouse, you can put a spending limit on that credit card. Maybe it's $200, maybe it's $500 is all they can charge on there, and then it stops. But what that does is every time you do stuff with your credit card and their social security number is tagged to your credit card, it helps them build up their credit score. So there's a lot of things that you can do to be able to make that go up. So I think it's important that you guys are understanding that you can become an authorized user on another person's card. I'll write that down here so you can have it. Last thing I want to say as far as what's important now is if you need to start building credit, and this can go for some of my 18, 19-year-olds, maybe some of you guys that have really got a credit situation where it's not good. You can do what's called a secured credit card. I am not talking about a debit card from your bank. I'm talking about a secured credit card. You want to make sure that there's a Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or Discover card symbol on there. Because I want to make sure that it's not just going to your bank, Bill's Community Bank or whatever it is. It's got to have a Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or Discover logo on it. Why? because now it's going to be reported to your credit bureaus, which will help you start to build a credit file. A secured credit card can be a $500 limit, a $1,000 limit. What it basically is a debit card with the ability to be tracked from the credit bureaus. So you put $1,000 in an account at the bank, whatever bank you're doing this at, they will give you a $1,000 secured credit card. You now have virtually a checking account with a card, a savings account with the ability to swipe a card. And so what that does is it allows you to start utilizing that $1,000. You're not going to be able to go over 1,000. That's why it's secured. The bank doesn't have any risk here because you put $1,000 in the bank and the most they'll let you charge is $1,000. But what it does is every time you make a payment on that, every time you swipe that card, every time you use the chip or tap or whatever it is you do today, you're going to see that that's reported to your credit bureaus. And so that's how you can start to build your credit score up. I think it is so important. It's so important we understand these are things that we can do. Now, the last thing I want you to think about, and to me, this is probably the most important part. And you can do this on any website that you choose, but what you need to do, ladies and gentlemen, is keep score. You need to keep score. I use Credit Karma. There's myfico.com. There is creditsesame.com. All the bureaus, so TransUnion, Equifax, Experian, they all have their own scoring type of scenarios. I like to use Credit Karma. It's free, doesn't affect my credit score whatsoever. I get a weekly update of what's going on. Now, the thing that we need to understand with credit is there's a score and a report. The score gives you the number, and this tells you why you got the number. I want to make sure I have access to both of those things. There's some people out there that give you a free credit score, but they don't give you the report. And I'm gonna keep coming back to this. I use Credit Karma because I get both and they're free. I'm sure there's other companies that are just as good, if not better. So I'm not just touting them. It's the one I'm familiar with. So what I want you guys to know about credit scores is you have no idea if you're winning or losing unless you're keeping score. So I hope this video on how to know what credit is, how they determine what your credit score is, and most importantly, how we can start to build our credit score back up, helps you a little bit in your journey to financial education and hopefully on your journey to financial independence. So if this video isn't for you, that's fine. If you've gone through this whole video and go, man, that was a waste of my last, I don't even know how long it's been, 20, 30, 40 minutes. That's okay. What you can do is watch it and then do what? Give this link to your son, your daughter, somebody you're trying to help out, maybe somebody you're trying to mentor, maybe somebody who's gone through a rough patch, maybe somebody who's just getting out of some type of abusive situation, maybe they've been incarcerated, maybe they've had other issues, maybe they've just gone through a divorce. It could be a million different things. Understand what we want to do is learn how to pay it forward. So that's what this credit video is all about, is educating you first and foremost, but hopefully you can pass this along to somebody else who needs this education as well. So ladies and gentlemen, that's a little bit on credit. So talk to you guys soon.